gonna do a wrap up. We're gonna do a wrap up. We're gonna do a wrap up before I forget what I read. Hey!
It could change the world.
What up, babes? My name is Steph. This is a wrap up of every book that I've read since 2025 started because we're already almost in spring, and this is about the time where my goldfish memory kicks in and I start to delete details of books that I read over 30 days ago. Okay, this is every book that I've read this year, minus one because I had to return it to the library. It's very blue. Kind of cute. I like it. And this is Rat. Say hi, Rat. Good Rat. I'm going to flash some stats on the screen because I forget that stats are a thing that I find interesting and other people might also find interesting. If memory serves correct, I think I've read 11 books and something like 5,000 pages, maybe. I don't remember. But I've only rated one of these books less than 4 stars. So I'm on a roll. This is my little buddy. Rat's going to help me talk about some books. Let's start off with the one that I don't have because it went back to the library, Alif the Unseen, written by G. Willow Wilson and was picked for the Interstellar Sci-Fi Book Club that I run. It was great. I think I ended up giving it like 4.25 stars or something. This story is a retelling of the Arab Spring, which happened like late 2010s to early 2010s. Following a hacker dude named Alif, there are spirits. There's a lot of folklore and references taken from Arabic and Indian folklore. One of our main characters is a vampire demon. Absolutely adore him, and the only people that are able to see him are people that are highly religious or like tied a little bit to the Jinn world. We actually enter the Jinn world in this book, which was super cool and my favorite parts of the book. We have some really well written female characters, and if you're looking for a book that actually demonstrates a love of Muslim customs, respect for Arab traditions, and the beauty of somebody who embraces their hijab, I suggest this. Super fun. Walking Practice was our pick for January, I'm pretty sure. Walking Practice was everything. I love this book so much. Walking Practice is a horror about an alien who is an allegory for trans and queer body experiences, and I love Mumu so much. This is Mumu. Mumu is life. Mumu is trapped on Earth, has been basically stuck here for like 14 years and has tried to eat everything, but everything tastes gross except for people. So, start a dating app. That's how you go hunting. They're able to transform their body to meet the requirements of whatever they think will be attractive to the person that they're hunting, but also they love themselves too. And Mumu slays every time. They are feeling themselves, and I'm feeling them too. Their prized possessions are their saws because they're basically a serial killer. A very slow following of these murders and hypersexuality that's actually really beautiful. It has some commentary on the way that public spaces are not geared towards accommodating invisible disabilities and just like a lack of care for disabled bodies in general, but also aggression towards trans bodies. And it is stunning. I love it. It was comedic. I highly recommend the audiobook because the narrator killed it. The narrator knocked it out of the park. This is probably my new favorite audiobook of all time. In case you can't tell, I'm like a really big Magic player. I love Magic the Gathering. So, of course, I was going to rate this Magic the Gathering manga, Volume 2, high. I give it 4 stars just because there was a little bit of a scene in here that gave me the ick. And I was like, I don't like this. We didn't need this to be a thing. And I know it's an older manga, but I don't think that excuses it. Mangaka, you're a little bit sus right now with your treatment of the young female character. I got my eye on you. But other than that, it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! But better. I said what I said. Traitor of Red Winter, Book 2 in the Red Winter Chronicles. This was sent to me by Tor, and I loved it. I think I gave it 4 stars. Or 4.2 stars? I don't remember, but I had a blast. Can't wait for the 3rd one. This completely renewed my hope in fantasy. Amazing by main character who's figuring herself out. Girl is in the trenches. And honestly, I don't blame her for becoming a self-destructive little bitch because honey has trauma and she's young and she's dealing with it the best that she can. She's also harboring a really dark secret, which if the people that she has a crush on find out about, they might kill her. So, like, yeah, I'd probably have a drink too. It's action packed. There's a lot of politics. It does have a little bit of second book syndrome in the beginning, but this one is way more dramatic. And I actually gasped at the twist, which doesn't happen often. So impressed. We Do Not Part by Hong Kong. Hong Kong can do no wrong. I love this author. Won a Nobel Prize for a reason. This is another literary fiction and historical fiction that is following characters who are about 1 to 2 generations removed from the Jeju massacre, which was an event that happened a long time ago on the island of Jeju at the southern tip of South Korea, in which it was occupied by the United States. And we did some really messed up stuff. I think this is a really important part of history. Can you remember that actually playing world police also makes you an oppressor? It talks about generational trauma, and man, this hit all of my triggers. I didn't sob in this like I did with the other Hong Kong books that I read, but it's super important, and I was actually really attached to the characters. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Can't wait to talk about it. I'm going to be talking about it on my channel because this was the February fiction pick for one of my book clubs, the Annotation Station, where we read to stay informed. And it was basically everything I exactly expected from this author. It was nuanced, it was slow, it was hard hitting, and left me with a lot of emotions. You got to be in the right headspace to pick this one up. Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. Chuck Tingle, I need to go to a Chuck Tingle book signing. Like, Chuck Tingle is probably going to easily become one of my favorite horror authors because I plan to read on every horror book that he has written and plans to write. But this was impeccable. It takes the idea of rainbow capitalism and brings it to both ends of the spectrum, because our main character, Misha, is a writer in Hollywood, and they're not super out, even though they have a boyfriend and they have their smaller community that they're open to, but they're not really out. And it's like most of their characters are queer coded, or some of their characters are just openly sapphic. And once again, the studio was like, you gotta bury your gaze. Queer tragedy sells. And he's like, but I don't want to. Why can't we have queer joy? Why can't queer joy sell? And this is a horror that explores rainbow capitalism and can queer joy sell. So good. I had a blast. The monsters in here were my flavor of monsters. I was on the edge of my seat, screaming, gasping. I need someone to pick this up and either turn it into a movie or turn it into a miniseries. HBO, Apple, somebody get on this. Defectors by Paola Ramos. This was the nonfiction pick for my book club, the Annotation Station, for the month of February. I actually got to meet the author and get it signed, which I'm super happy about. Paola Ramos is a Hispanic news reporter, and this is a very timely book examining why it is that Latina immigrants have been coming to the United States and moving into extremist far-right groups, even though those same groups are the ones that are anti-immigrant. And I learned a lot from this. I also think it's a really good introduction for anybody who hasn't really taken the time to think deeply about this, or is not within the Latina community, and maybe you've also had these same questions. What I did learn about it were a couple things, just some historical facts about laws in which people can basically whitewash themselves, which I wasn't familiar with the terms of those laws. The racism is really rampant in our communities. Because there's a lot of colorism going on. There's a lot of taking advantage of the fact that a lot of us Latinos are light-skinned, and so we're able to play to both sides of the spectrum because we have a mixed heritage. We were colonized. In our heritage, we have indigenous roots, we have Black roots, we have white roots. There was slavery. There was a lot of things that went on. And so with that mixed bag of traumas, how do people reconcile that, especially with the anti-communist movements that have been prevalent because of dictatorship within the past 100 years between Latina countries and the United States? So I thought that this was a really good start to conversation, and I'd like to see other books that dig into this a little bit deeper. Gloomy Girl Variety Show by Freda Epum. Thanks to Feminist Press for sending me this copy in exchange for a review. I ended up giving this 5 stars, and this is one of those cases where in my heart, I feel like it's a 4.5, but because it's a smaller author and I want people to pick this up because I think it's really important, I'm marking it on 5 stars on my reading apps. It can get a little bit of a bump But I'm being very transparent about why I'm doing that, because there are not enough books that focus on Black mental health. There's a very important crossroads that a lot of artists that I focused on within my practice taken the time to really consider how the health system has failed Black bodies and bodies of color, and how Black women's mental health is not even considered. So, for this artist, who is a Black woman, to talk about their experience in the healthcare system dealing with mental health, which, let me tell you, a lot of cultures, a lot of minority cultures back home, mental health is not a thing. You're depressed, go make a sandwich, go outside, sit in the sun, get some vitamin D. Mental health and depression is not a thing that is acknowledged in a lot of cultures. And the author is Nigerian, so that is something that they experience with their Nigerian parents. But they talk about wanting to buy a home and like trying to assimilate to the American dream. But like, what does that even mean when you're stuck into this healthcare system? What does that mean when you're a Black body that's trying to exist in a space that is not accessible to disabilities of most kind, but also especially invisible disabilities and mental health? So I recommend this. Death's End by Cixin Liu. I made a whole vlog for this. I made multiple videos about this, actually. This was a blast. This is probably my all-time favorite sci-fi series, is the Remembrance of Earth's Past. It was just so much fun. This author's bonkers, man. This guy, I don't know what he's drinking. I don't know what he's doing in his spare time, but bro, he made my brain hurt, but kind of in the best way possible, because this man was so out of pocket and I was here for all of it. I absolutely loved it. And I also need to read everything else that he's ever written, because I hope it is equally as out of pocket. I hate this. It's really bad. I'm not going to go into too many details here because I have a live show scheduled in which we're probably going to talk like 3 hours about this, at least, maybe. I don't even know. Unless we just run out of ways to say that it sucked. But also, I have a vlog coming out. And I don't want to talk about this man anymore. I don't want this man's name to be in my mouth anymore. I don't care how you feel about the series. This is one of the worst books. The writing, this, worst book I've ever read. Probably. This takes the cake as the worst, most frustrating book that I've ever read. Brandon Sanderson, stop trying to check boxes with your queer characters, because you're doing a horrible job. And also, the mental health rep in here is atrocious, and that's my opinion. This one, I'm having a great time. I'm almost done at the time of filming this. It's the 1st of March today when I'm filming this, and I technically read like 75% of this in February, so I'm gonna just count it for that. But I think right now, unless anything really dramatic happens in the last 25%, it's sitting at a 4-star. This is Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, and the naked hardback says Rusted Robots because that is the name of the book that the character in here writes. This is so good. Like, first of all, I love that the author is very unapologetically inserting Nigerian customs and culture, and is like, if you don't get it, Google it. That's a you problem. And I'm like, slay, because people need to start Googling shit. And our main character, Zelu, goes through it with her family, with trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life. She ultimately writes a book in which she inserts a lot of Nigerian culture. But Death of the Author basically means that once the artwork is out in the world, how do people interpret this? And it is open to be interpreted in any which way by other people, which is then valid. So people are going to say what they want to say about it, and their interpretation may be as valid as what she wanted it to mean. But she is disabled. She is in a wheelchair, who has a lot of expectations put on her by her parents when she's 34 years old. And she, even though woman has multiple degrees and she's a college professor, she is still not seen as successful. And even when she becomes a published author, she's still not seen as successful because cultural differences. I'm going to have a lot to say about this in tomorrow's live show that's going to be on my channel, but so far I'm having a great time. We will see if that changes. Anyway, those are all of the books that I read this year. Say bye, Rat. If you want to support my channel, consider becoming a member so you can access to the Annotation Station Book Club, or you can join the Interstellar Sci-Fi Book Club at the links in my description. Everything's down there if you want to check me out on all my socials. I post videos whenever I feel like it. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Mr. Wonka worked the factory.